You're muted.
Welcome to the OBR Streaming Network. This is The React. My name is Brad Ward. Good to see you here this evening. The man next to me is the always fantastic Pete Smith. Pete, I'm a little flustered tonight, obviously not, hitting the mute button. My soul hurts for MJ Emerson today. And it's obviously what could be and is at least appears to be initially tough news for the Browns. Training camp injury where he it's an Achilles injury, but they're going to get some imaging done. But certainly seems like it is a severe injury. What are your thoughts, and where do the Browns go from here?
Well, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of Achilles injuries that are going to work out well. So I'm going to assume the Browns are not going to have him this season. And for the Browns, it's bad. For Martin Emerson personally, it's devastating. You are coming into a year where you didn't play great last year, had changed your body in some ways, added muscle to become more explosive, entering a contract year, and then you are like, if you're going to miss the whole season, that hurts you obviously in terms of being a potential free agent. But worse, if it's an Achilles injury, there are no guarantees. The best thing working in his favor is his age. He's young, but the type of corner he plays, he doesn't have a lot of excess speed and explosion. So there is the possibility that is career threatening. So all of that is, terrifying for a young player like that. You're Martin Emerson coming in going, I'm going to prove it. I'm going to earn that contract. I'm going to lock down that corner spot, earn a contract extension, do all these things. And in the blink of an eye, now you have no idea what your future is going to be. At this point, the best case scenario is that he basically signs, a very low deal. Maybe there's incentives attached to re-sign with the Browns after this year because of the system, assuming they don't make any major changes on defense. That part is awful for him. For the Browns, it's bad because obviously we're coming into the season with Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, and Greg Newsome and feeling pretty good about that. This eliminates, I would think, any chance that Greg Newsome is moved. Let's start there. Yeah. I would imagine the best course of action is for him to move outside permanently this year. Yeah. It's not to say he can't move inside. There may be situations. I could see the Bengals being a situation where he might play inside if they've got somebody who can sort of match up against T. Higgins. So that changes it from that standpoint. And then the next question is who then is going to step up and play the slot. Now, Greg Newsome certainly does not want the opportunity to come his way the way it has. But Greg Newsome has sort of been, a believer that he's better fit outside. And he has incredible talent in terms of physical tools and everything else. He just needs to be more consistent. So, again, the circumstances for how this opportunity has opened up for him suck because he's very close with Martin Emerson. They are good friends and everything else. But if you are Greg Newsome and you've been sitting here going, I want to be a boundary corner, I want to earn a contract extension, and part of the reason his name kept coming in trade talks was one, there wasn't a compelling reason for the Browns to necessarily extend him, and from Greg Newsome's standpoint, he would like to find a place where he's going to get some security from that standpoint. So for him, he now gets to go out there and give it all he has to sort of return to the 2021 season, where Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome looked incredibly promising as outside corners. Everybody was super excited about that. And then the Martin Emerson pick sort of fell in their lap, and they sort of went with what they're going with. So that becomes sort of an interesting opportunity for Greg Newsome, because if he can do it, again, physically, he has everything you want. He's tall. He's extremely quick, elite agility, speed, length, all the things you want in a system where they're going to, let him play man coverage. He has everything. Now it becomes consistency. Can he play up to the billing that he believes he can play? And maybe things have changed for him since he's now a father. Maybe that alters his sort of perspective from that standpoint. But like, there's certainly a non-zero chance. I don't think it's necessarily a bad chance that he does become that player that they need him to be. And that doesn't mean he's going to get $100 million contract or anything, but I could see a world where the Browns find themselves in a situation where Greg Newsome is the guy they need him to be moving forward. They get the man coverage setup they want that's different than Martin Emerson's setup would be. So then now you go to the slot. The Browns have been collecting these players for the last 2 years or so because Greg Newsome was set to make like $13 million, and there was a feeling that the Browns didn't want to pay him about $13 million to be a slot corner, even though he's really useful because, one, Greg Newsome's a fantastic communicator. That is one of the things where he does not get enough credit. He is great at making calls, making sure guys understand what's going on defensively, and putting guys in the right position from that standpoint. But when Denzel Ward or Martin Emerson missed time last year, he can bounce outside and be a very capable replacement in those situations, and you don't lose a whole lot. Whereas if he was traded and Denzel Ward, who misses about a month a year, goes down, there isn't sort of a natural answer to jump out and do that. So that now says, Cameron Mitchell is going to continue to do both. He's going to continue to rep inside and outside because he has to. But can Cameron Mitchell become a full-time slot player? Again, tools-wise, he has a lot of things you like. Capable man cover skills, decent size, smart, all those things. They've also drafted Miles Harden last year in the 7th round, who is built to play in the slot, almost has a little bit of a slot corner / safety versatility in that respect. They've signed Nick Needham, who, I don't think he's done anything in 2 years, so I don't know why anyone expects him to suddenly be useful, but nevertheless, he's here, and hopefully he proves me wrong, and he's great. They also signed Anthony Kendall, who has experience in the slot, though I think Kendall's main contributions, if he makes the 53-man roster, and I suspect he will be on special teams. They've got guys like Chigozie Anuzium, who is a boundary corner only, and is a project of sorts. Super athletic, but hadn't really proven it much at Colorado State. Tremendous size, somebody you want to work with. And then you get to the rookies they brought in. Dom Jones.
Marion James and Dom Jones.
Yes. So now you have all those guys. Now, whenever they get some confirmation on Emerson's status, I also assume they're going to bring in somebody else. There are veterans out there, though none of them do a whole lot for me. I wouldn't be shocked if the Browns bring in another young player, potentially somebody who's fresh off the UFL. I don't know where Khalif Halassi is at this point, but he could be brought in because he sort of profiles similarly to Martin Emerson. But that becomes a major focus. And then to add to that, you could theoretically include DeMonte Casey in that equation as well as a safety who could theoretically play this out. But they also need to find somebody for when they play super quick guys, they can man up there. So on the one hand, the Browns are sort of built to absorb this injury, even though it sucks. On the other hand, it does create more problems and put more pressure on that group as a whole. Obviously, that group, that secondary and corner specifically, come in needing to be way better than they were last year. The Browns' defensive line is being asked, or is built to sort of take a lot of pressure off of them, but they've still got to be way better than they were. In some ways, I think what they've got now makes more sense for what they want to be. I like Martin Emerson. I think he's effective what he is in press and being able to jam and disrupt, and maybe that messes with the timing of some receivers that combined with a good pass rush can be really effective. I also kind of think having Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome as your two boundary corners in that scenario is a really good for that setup. Now, to sort of come back to Greg Newsome, my only major concern with Greg Newsome to this point is the one thing Martin Emerson has done well against is size. And the one thing Greg Newsome has sort of had a little bit of trouble with is size. Cortland Sutton abused Greg Newsome a couple of years ago when either Emerson or Ward was out, and Cortland Sutton just all over the field in that game. And, they're going to have to deal with DK Metcalf. They're going to have to deal with T. Higgins. And Denzel Ward is not going up against those guys. So unless they're going to find somebody else, it's going to be Greg Newsome. So, again, huge opportunity for Greg Newsome to sort of be the guy that he always thought he could be. And there's every reason to believe he can be. But obviously hugely disappointing for the Browns and Martin Emerson. If you want to try to get a silver lining out of this, the fact that it happened this early means the Browns have sort of more options than anyone, but it just sucks.
It sucks really bad for him personally, especially as you said, and shown us in so far. I know he can do both in and out, and they've used him way. Miles Harden hasn't showed us. Oh, and then I worry about. Yep. Can you hear me, Pete?
I'm experiencing the same thing that everybody else is saying.
Okay. Am I unfrozen?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Basically, I was just saying that neither of them have proven a whole ton. And I think the one problem that you run into here is depth on the outside. Now, because of what Newsome did before, right? He was a luxury to be able to send out there when Denzel misses time, or if Greg Newsome were to miss time. It's just hard for me to find an answer on this roster that can go out there and kind of hold up. Maybe it's Cam Mitchell. I don't know. That for him to fill Newsome's shoes and be able to do both, when called upon would be a big deal, a big leap from where he's been. Mm-hmm. Do we take a more serious look at the veteran market? You mentioned a younger guy you thought, but none of these veteran names do anything for you. You don't think they'll explore any of these names? There's a number of 25 to 30-year-old corners on the market.
Like the guy that interests me the most is, in terms of talent would be, what's his face? The former first-round pick from the Chargers, but his shoulder is, as far as I can tell, cooked.
Asante Samuel Jr.
Yes, I loved him coming out of college, but I don't know if he can pass a physical. Other than that, it's not easy because you're trying to find a specific fit because of what the Browns are going to do. So there are guys out there that are, reasonably interesting. Fabian Moreau is reasonably interesting. I just don't know if it's going to move the needle enough. And look, the bottom line is with Cameron Mitchell, like we were sitting there coming into camp hoping that Cameron Mitchell would step up enough that he could sort of take over that job and make Newsome tradable from that standpoint. Assuming a team was going to come in with an offer that made it worth moving. So, that hasn't changed. It's just now there's no fallback of if he can't do it, Greg Newsome's there. So, the time is there for Cam Mitchell to sort of be that guy that the Browns drafted him to be. He seemed like I love the value and the makeup of the player. It's time to figure it out. Hopefully Brandon Lynch can help him coach him up. And if he can't, have Ephraim Bamden do it, because Ephraim Bamden is an excellent coach. But yeah, I mean, the bottom line is it's time to step up. They've been bringing in these guys. Time to find somebody who can do it. And, as a result, this now sort of, it turns, this was something I was worried was going to be a thing anyway.
Yeah.
Immediately you add corner to the 2026 draft of things you're probably going to need to address in some form or fashion, because even if Martin Emerson comes back, it's going to be really difficult to be able to go, oh, he's back. So I think that's going to be one more thing you have to do. So, I'm hoping that the answer is in the building. Corners, there are not a whole lot of teams out there that are just giving away corner help. So, I don't expect anything to magically manifest. It's going to give the Browns an answer. So if the free agents are out there that they don't like, they've got what they've got.
Khalif Halasi is in Minnesota's camp, all with Fabian. Yeah. So, I mean, at least that's an easy call to make if you wanted to kick the tires on that situation, right?
Well, I mean, in that scenario, you can essentially get a heads up and say, with best scenario would be trade guy you don't want for guy that they're going to inevitably cut in Khalif Halasi. But I mean, you might be able to get a heads up that they're going to cut him or waive him, and then have the ability to make a claim. The Browns are going to be super high in the order for waiver claims anyway. So, and it's not like Halasi doesn't know the defense. Like, it's not like you need him to get a ton of reps to learn the system. It's entirely can he do the job, and they have familiarity there. So, that's one where I think you can sort of keep that in your back pocket as an option. Whereas you're probably looking to get somebody who's unfamiliar with your system right now to get them up to speed to see if they can do it before you pull the trigger on that type of move.
What about just a couple names? What about a name like Caleb Farley, former first rounder? We know Barry likes those guys. He's still young. Go ahead.
I don't know. Like, I'll check real quick. I'm very curious. I don't know that he's played more than about 5 games in his career.
Okay. What about a guy like Rasul Douglas?
12 games. Oh no, he played 9 games last year. He has played 3 games as a rookie, 9 games in his second year. Didn't play at all in 2023, and then played 9 games last year. Rasul Douglas, interesting in the sense that he's probably more suited to play zone, but he does check the box for big body corner. I believe he's like 6'1" with decent size. So there's an element where you can sit there and go, I want to sort of create the Martin Emerson element, but I don't know if he's really going to be a guy who's going to line up and really press, as opposed to be more of a cover 3 type corner. And the Browns run a good amount of cover 3. It's not like he couldn't do it, but that's more of a fit thing. And then the other part about that is Rasul Douglas is a wanted man in terms of there are teams out there, and what he's hoping to get is, beyond certainty of role, is money. That he is, I believe, I could be wrong on this, but I believe he's turned down contract offers from at least 1 team and maybe 2 because the money wasn't enough. So look, the Browns, if they want him bad enough, could pay him enough to bring him in. So I get it. If they go that route, I can easily see the fit. I just don't know if they're that worried about it.
Okay. Yeah, there's some other names out there. Emmanuel Mosley, you mentioned Samuel. Michael Davis is 30 years old. Stephon Gilmore is almost 35. Kendall Fuller is 30. James Bradbury is 31, almost 32 by the time the season starts. CJ Henderson is a former first. Did he hurt his neck to the degree that he's not going to play football anymore? Do you know?
I have no idea. But my guess is that's why he's out there. And then the other guys that you mentioned are largely, I imagine, waiting for calls from contenders, especially Gilmore. Gilmore's not coming to Cleveland.
Right.
But Kendall Fuller, those type of guys, I think, are waiting from calls from teams that are going to be able to be a threat and potentially wait until during the season to sign to ensure that happens. Emmanuel Mosley, somebody I really like, but I believe he's another guy coming off injury.
Who'd you say?
Emmanuel Mosley.
Yeah. What about Travion Mullen? Played in Baltimore last year.
Former, I believe he's a former Clemson corner who I thought sucked in college and has sort of proven me right to this point.
He was hurt his foot last year, so that may be why he's off of the roster as well. So, okay, not a ton out there to be. I mean, you're probably better off. There's probably a more enticing list in Andrew Berry's pocket of guys that might get cut. You know what I mean? That they will be taking a look at when rosters get cut down.
Yeah, I mean, they have added rookies that were undrafted through that process anyway. There's already positions where that makes sense, including potentially running back. They did this before with Haslam in the first place. He was with the Chiefs, and then they carried him for an entire season. So, I mean, they're definitely going to be out there looking. Chigozie Anuzie was a undrafted rookie who was with somebody else, and then the Browns got him sort of near the end of the season to the practice squad and then the reserves futures contract. Obviously, that wouldn't help the Browns now, but they are certainly looking at areas where they can potentially find help.
All right, from one position of injury to another, you're watching the React on the OBR streaming network. Make sure you see if you can find that like button and give it a tap down there. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Jordan Hicks decides to retire. We haven't talked since this happened. Schlesinger now, I guess, takes the green dot. It's going to play middle linebacker. My question, I guess, is more, I'm not like completely, you would think, that without JOK for a season and, indefinitely, and then now Hicks out, they would be in a world of hurt. But luckily they drafted Schlesinger, who appears to be, I mean, I was out there Saturday. He's bigger than the entire room. He's just as fast. And he's just as fast as the rest of them. So he's a kind of a freak of nature. I like that they're giving him the green dot now, because it seemed like, in the past, because of injuries and JOK moving around and stuff, they've kind of had to keep moving that around, on the defense. I think, maybe you find a long-term home for that voice on the defense. And I think both of us have a lot of faith in what Jason Tarver can do with what you give him.
Yes.
As far as a coach goes. So I'm not panicked about this. But I do wonder a little bit about depth, for like while Bush is suspended. Do we think he's going to get suspended?
Yes, I would be shocked if he didn't.
Okay. So, during that time frame, are you concerned about depth at all there?
No. I am extremely confident in the linebacker room. The Jordan Hicks thing sucks because Jordan Hicks is good. Jordan Hicks, like has a super high level understanding of how to play the position, instincts, processing, being able to react.
Scheme too.
Yeah, and he's been with Jim Schwartz forever. If not for his body letting him down, I'm convinced he could have played till he's 40, because he just understands how to do it at a really high level. And he was good for the Browns last year. Unfortunately, he dealt with like the elbow and some other things. It's disappointing from the standpoint he won't be here to sort of help Schlesinger along, though it's not like he can't do it. It's just I don't know if he will. He may be content to retire. I don't know how involved he wants to be.
Yeah.
That part of it sucks. And I assumed Schlesinger was going to be the weak side linebacker as a rookie and sort of be eased in. And because I looked at it as Jim Schwartz, even with Jordan Hicks, will still use colorful language when he disagrees with Jordan Hicks's diagnosis of a defensive situation as he proceeds to ream him. It takes a lot for Jim Schwartz to trust. And I thought maybe the Browns would be I thought Jim Schwartz would maybe want to wait a minute before moving Schlesinger over to the mic. But this was where is always headed. We've just skipped a step of what I thought was going to happen, and we're just going with it. And I am blown away from what I've seen from Carson Schlesinger. Forget the little thump on Dylan Sampson. Great run read, all this stuff. It's not the clips. It's the clips of other people doing things where I see Carson Schlesinger doing stuff where I really like. Like I'm seeing Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel throw something to flat, and suddenly I see Schlesinger in pursuit flying over there in a position to make the tackle, or Schlesinger on the blitz, and they have blitzed him a lot in these practices, and just speed, timing, and his size on that defensive front. Like, he does not look small compared to a bunch of defensive linemen. And, we find out that Mason Graham, who had a really nice looking rep against Wyatt Teller today, he says he's 292 pounds. He wants to play at 295. Schlesinger's like only 50 pounds lighter than he is because he's 242. And I don't expect he's going to lose much more than that. So you see a guy early, and a long way to go. The green dot thing's going to come with its share of bumps along the way, but that's fine. Let him do it. But he's not just fast. He's fast because he's smart and understands what the other team is doing that allows him to make speed look faster, which is really fun. That's why, I've talked about this. I think, yes, Schlesinger has to get better at taking on blocks on that stuff. But the setup he was drafted into has to be ideal for him. And I'd love to be able to ask him about this, because we've already sort of seen it, and some of this was without pads. But now that they've got the pads on, you're an offensive line and you are overwhelmed already with the front. And then you've got this 242-pound guy flying up to make run reads. And that's how Dylan Sampson got just destroyed, thump and all that, whatever. You got thudded to the ground doing that.
Yeah, but bounced.
When you've got Mason Graham and Malik Collins and Juwan Briggs, and eventually Mike Hall is going to be back, and Shelby Harris and Aiden Huntington, all these guys coming, that's just the middle. It's going to make Carson Schlesinger's life so much easier compared to what he was dealing with even just at UCLA, where he had basically one out of every five, basically 20% of their tackles. I believe is 19.8, which is insanely high, and at least allows for the possibility of him into the range of, the highest outcomes, like the guys who are in the Hall of Fame, like Levante Davis, Ray Lewis. That's the type of tackle market share those superstar type linebackers produce. Only 1 year, all these reasons sort of be cautious, but at least that you've seen that high level of linebacker. It's also why I predicted the Maurice Dowd or whatever it is award for the rookies, because I think he's just going to blow people away in a way that, Mason Graham can't because of the nature of the position. So I love that part of it. Where the question lies, and you sort of alluded to this earlier, is now what happens at will. Yeah. And I have to say that the Jerome Baker thing makes way more sense now than it ever did before. Because when they signed him, it was sort of like, why is he here? Right. 1 year deal, league minimum. You had Jordan Hicks, Schlesinger seeming like he was going to walk right into the will spot. And now you sit there and you go, okay, we've got a guy who's similar dimensions to Jay. Okay, very fast, very athletic, all these things Jim Schwartz wants. He's been around forever. Even though he's only 28 and Tony Grossi's asking about his retirement for some reason. He's a plug and play fit for exactly what they want to do. Yeah. Having said that, I continue to believe that the guy they really want out, I think Jerome Baker is the floor option. I think Mahmoud Diabate is the ceiling.
Yeah.
And he's 24. He is supremely athletic in a way that I think people don't really understand, like extremely explosive, speed, all these things. And it's just about getting it to click for him faster and be more consistent in all these other things. But he played over 500 snaps last year. And Jason Tarver is an excellent assistant coach. I would say he's the best, or I should say he takes a backseat to no one in terms of player development. I go back to the end of the 2022 season where JOK went down with a foot injury for the year. They lost guys like Jordan Kunazic, and they were just out of guys. And they played with Reggie Ragland and Jermaine Carter and a bunch of these other guys, and they beat, this was Deshaun Watson at the end of that year, and who was awful, but they beat the Ravens 13-3 with that crew. They beat Washington 24-10 with that crew. And I remember people were pissed that they didn't bring Reggie Ragland back from that team for the next year, because they kept seeing, like, the one game he had something like 11 or 12 solo tackles. They're going, this is the answer. This is going to be the next big thing. One, he had all these tackles, and two, they really liked him because he was like 250 pounds. But regardless, that has been Jason Tarver's thing. You give him something, he's going to get more out of it than you thought he was going to get. And they're still, even with all the stuff they're going through without, no JOK and now no Jordan Hicks, they're still like more invested at that position than they have been in a few years.
Past.
So I don't sit there and go, oh man, woe is me. What I'm sitting here hoping for is, one, please keep Carson Schwarzenegger healthy, because I really want to watch him play football. He's going to be a lot of fun. And then also, hopefully Mamu Diabate can lock down that position next to him. I think that's the Browns' best case scenario, because, all right, I should say second best scenario. Best case scenario is JOK comes back next year and you just get JOK and Schwarzenegger and everybody's sitting there going, oh man, this is going to be a lot of fun. Second best scenario is if JOK cannot come back, that you have Carson Schwarzenegger and Mamu Diabate, who earns a contract extension as an undrafted free agent. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, 4 years, $25 million or something like that. I mean, just continues to earn the team's saying that we want you back as a starting middle linebacker. That would be huge. So, and those aren't the only guys they have. They've also got the undrafted kid out of USC, whose name I can't remember, who's also another sort of lightweight guy who I know very little about, but Jason Tarver seems to keep talking him up for some reason. So I'm going to take his word for it.
Easton.
Yes.
Easton,
so I'm curious to see what he does. I know very little about him. I was not a Buki Watson guy when he was drafted. I don't think he really did much. Obviously, he missed time in training camp last year. To me, it's really, he's got to get going real fast this year, or he's probably not going to be on the team. I think he needs to sort of be that Sam linebacker real fast and sort of take on the Sione Takitaki role, because if not, I think Sione Takitaki might be available and they may just say screw it and bring him back. They mentioned Winston Reed, who another guy who Jason Tarver
got the best out of,
seemingly, even though Winston Reed is sort of just this hammer. But like Tarver argues that, and I think a lot of this is matchup based, that like when he was on the field, he was great. I'm not going to go that far, but like, again, this is who Jason Tarver is. If he picks 3 guys out of the broadcast watching us right now, he's going to get one of them to play quality football for at least one game. Like, that's just how good he's been. So I sit here and look at this and go, Jason Tarver has Carson Schwarzenegger, who looks tremendous already. And we'll see if this sustains. It was a couple days of practice, but looks very impressive from what I've seen. He's got Diabate, who's had time with. He's got Winston Reed. He's got, he's got Buki Watson. He's got Jerome Baker again, who I think is the floor for Will. I don't worry about it. And then, Devin Bush, even if he's suspended, and I suspect he will be, unfortunately, they gave him that stupid contract, which looks really bad because of his arrest, where they guaranteed him $3.25 million. So unless they can void his guarantees through, something with the legal process, he's going to be back. So I do not worry at all about this. I'm excited in the sense that it's now going to sort of jumpstart again. This whole defense is getting younger, which is what we want. Defensive line getting younger, linebackers getting younger. And if these guys can lock it down, then that defense as a whole has the ability to sustain for multiple years, as opposed to we're constantly having to repair holes. Even if they have to, even if we come out of the season and go, now we got to get another corner. Okay, now you draft another young player to this defense on a position you want to draft constantly anyway. Not the dream scenario, but like I still look at this and go, okay, I still really like where this defense is going. Like I said, I cannot overstate how excited I am about Carson Sweatshirt and Mason Graham with everything else they've got going on. Like I have every reason to be terrified about this team's ability to score points. And as I did much of the end of last year, I still loved watching this defense play.
Yes, Pache Bush is practicing. Ian, I don't know how you calculated 9 picks on quarterbacks in 2 years. Are you counting the picks from the trade? I don't understand that. And then they won't. Just to clarify, Jimmy Haslam didn't say that he didn't want Shedeur Sanders. He said that he didn't pick him. Andrew Berry picked him.
Correct.
Yeah. He didn't say he didn't want him. All right. And they won't be trading him anytime soon, I don't believe. At least I don't think so.
Well,
let's talk about.
Let's say there's a scenario where they trade Shedeur Sanders. I already think they'll get more for him than they spent on him.
Yeah.
I'm already at a point where I think that doesn't mean they're going to get a first or second round pick, but I think if they trade him right now, obviously they're not going to take anything less. But I could see a scenario where somebody wants to give up a 4th round pick and say, "Oh, we screwed up and missed on this," but we'll see.
I think it would be silly to trade him at this point.
I agree with you. I'm just saying, I think if they were to do it,
yeah.
I think he sort of helped himself already to sort of quiet some of the concerns around him.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about that very topic. I have voiced my opinion on this topic, the quarterback situation, because now we have Kenny Pickett with a oddly timed hamstring injury, Pete, right as we go into pads. Strangely enough, he was running on and off the field on Saturday, interviewing nothing. I don't know when he hurt his hamstring, but he looked fine at the end of practice. I know that. And then I don't know. But he hurt his hamstring at some point. He's out. He's missing time. There are wide varying opinions on Kenny Pickett at this point and where he stands with the team. I said and kind of have written as well that I think this competition is over before it even started. I think this is Flacco's job at this point. I think Kenny is who we thought he was, who at least I thought he was. And I think that there just isn't enough time for the rookies to be ready to start week 1. Where are you at with Pickett? Do you think he could still come back and start week 1? While we're doing this, I'm going to go through some while we're talking about the quarterbacks. I'm going to show the quarterbacks on their first day of padded practice, which was Monday, all 3 of them. And while we're doing this here, so this is Flacco's stuff.
Yeah. So I think Kenny Pickett's behind the 8 ball at this point. I do think the injury is awfully conveniently timed. I don't know how hurt his hamstring is, but whatever. He has a hamstring. My theory of the case coming into this whole thing was they were going to get as much of a look as Kenny Pickett early on as they could. One, they didn't need Joe Flacco to take a ton of reps early, and we saw that he rested a number of days between OTAs, minicamp, and even in training camp. The rookies weren't there yet. They were still trying to acclimate to the scheme and get their feet under them. So get as much of a look at Kenny Pickett as possible. if he didn't blow you away, and I don't think he's been bad. I think he's been fine. It's just fine isn't what this team needs. They need something better than that. Having not gotten sort of that spark that that he's the second coming, or that he's the next version of Sam Darnold this year, that it's sort of this injury, real or imagined, sort of allows them to do the thing most people wanted them to do anyway, which is stop repping 4 quarterbacks, even though I think the Browns have been handling this well so far in terms of getting them reps. But now they're down to 3, 1 veteran and 2 rookies. From that standpoint, Flacco has to be looked at as the overwhelming favorite to be the starter. The comfort level, the fact he's a veteran, the fact that the Browns can be reasonably confident when they take the field against the Cincinnati Bengals to open the season. Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, Harold Fannin, Jamari Thrash, Cedric Tillman are going to get chances to look like the players they're going to be with Joe Flacco. We cannot guarantee that with Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel at this point. And the Browns, 1, need to win, or need to at least try to win. 2, they cannot do what happened last year, and with Deshaun Watson notably, and sit there and have an offense where you have no idea what anyone can do because Deshaun Watson just couldn't play dead. So often it looked like the Browns were playing with 9 players. Because he just wasn't looking at anything. So whether it was Jameis Winston last year or Joe Flacco this year and 2023, maybe there's turnovers and some absolutely ridiculous throws that kill your team, but you're at least going to get to find out what you have. Joe Flacco is going to give guys the chance to make plays, and they need to If Harold Fannin is as good as we hope, if Jamari Thrash is ready to take a jump this year, Cedric Tillman needs to be able to, do more than the 3-game stretch.
Yes.
You can't be in a situation where the quarterback stops you from doing it. But I'm going to say, even though Joe Flacco is the overwhelming favorite, I'm not closing the door on either of these rookies being so good that they have to be on the field. I still think that's an unlikely scenario, and the Browns aren't looking at this as week 1 is any kind of finishing line. They are looking at this as a season-long process for these guys and trying to get them ready, trying to get them as many reps as possible, seeing what they can do, seeing who's ultimately readier to do it, and who's going to be able to put this team, put the team in a position to win. And they've got to. It goes beyond, just being able to execute some of these other things. And I don't like the cliche of having to win over the locker room for the most part, but there is an element there where and you've heard players say this. David Njoku just said this about the feeling they get with Joe Flacco. Myles Garrett has talked about this. The feeling you get with Joe Flacco. There is a hurdle to be cleared for these rookies that they have to be able to sort of present that level of comfort, or the Browns have to lose enough with Joe Flacco that it no longer matters. But I still think, even though everybody wants to get rookies out there and see what they have and all this other crap, I am way more concerned in general about making sure the receivers can look like they're going to look like. Are we going to get real answers? Or are we going to come out of this offseason or come out of this season and go, holy crap, we need a whole lot more weapons? Regardless of the answer, we need a definitive one, as opposed to, well, we aren't sure because the quarterback situation was problematic and we don't really have an answer. So I'm with you as far as Joe Flacco, certainly the favorite. I'm not willing to say it's 100%, but it's going to take a hell of an effort and a surge from one of these rookies to overtake him. Or, the other scenario that could play out is over this next week with the hamstring, that the rookies are so bad that they're like, okay, we can get Kenny Pickett back out there because we want to, we want to see more of him and see if he can bring some juice, whatever.
I think that in at least the first, camp so far, I think the rookies have been both pretty good. I think that I don't think they've looked bad. Saturday they both looked pretty good. And I think that they both had a good day on Monday. I don't know about today as much. It was everything was kind of overwhelmed by the Emerson stuff, but on this day that was a sack on that play. But either way, I thought they both looked. They've given, while I don't think they will be ready to start, I think that they've both been intriguing to watch.
So, God bless Cam Justice, because she is bringing sanity to a world where ESPN Cleveland is putting out a random picture and stats. She's doing the Lord's work in terms of presenting video to actually show what guys are doing during practice, rather than just a completion chart with no yardage or anything else. What I would say, based on what I've seen, is that both rookie quarterbacks have looked, at least at times, like the best version of their college selves at some point in camp. Shedeur Sanders on that pass to Sal Cannella is a good example. Even though you can argue whether he was sacked or not, I don't care on the Gage Laverdane thing. What I want is for him to make that throw and make that play, figure out the blocking and all that other stuff. I like the fact he stepped up in the pocket, as opposed to doing what he's so often done and bailed out backwards. That's all stuff I want to see from him. But, by and large, the rest of those passes are, and they may be the right move. I don't know the answer to that, because obviously I can't see enough. The check down look like check downs. Now, that might be exactly what he's supposed to be doing. That might be exactly what the Browns want him to do. Now, from Dillon Gabriel's standpoint, what I see when he's good, the ball's out on exactly the right time. Like, when he's good, it's on schedule, ball is out. And there is one clip where you're sort of blown away by the pass rush the Browns are coming with. Myles Garrett and Malik Collins is executing a stunt, and they've got Carson Schwessinger coming, and Cam Thomas is coming, and Mason Graham and I believe it's Diabate are sort of running trailer, and it just looks like, just an overwhelming show of force. And Dillon Gabriel just casually, I'm sure it's the first read, or it's his go-to in when he sees the pressure coming. But he just casually, great footwork, right on time, hits the out route just like you want him to do. That's the Dillon Gabriel I saw on tape, which is a guy who understands what the answer is. He knows how to deal with the situation. Now, there have been plenty of plays from both of these guys where they look like rookies. Shedeur Sanders holding on the ball too long. I saw today Dillon Gabriel made a really bad decision where it looked like it was a pick to Cam Mitchell in the red zone. And if he didn't catch it, I thought two other guys might. But that's sort of the deal. And what we don't know, this is one of the reasons I hate stats, is what is the mentality of the Browns coaching staff? Do you want them to just execute sort of as high a level as possible, and in terms of getting the ball to playmakers, and if it's to the check down, fine. We just want you to get the ball out, complete passes, and execute the offense, versus a different mindset, which might say, hey, listen, we want you to sort of push the envelope and figure out what you can get away with. And I don't think this is what the Browns are doing with those two, but just this is a thought process you might have, especially if you've got a young quarterback or, somebody sort of firmly established, is maybe you throw a whole bunch of, you have a practice where you throw a whole bunch of picks because you're trying to figure out just how far you can push the envelope in terms of throws. You have a bunch of incomplete passes because you're trying to throw into windows that maybe you otherwise wouldn't, just to sort of see if you can do it. There are different ways to sort of evaluate this, and just blankly throwing up numbers and going, oh, he's the best. That there's no guarantee that's what the coaching staff wants from them, and that's ultimately what's more important.
Yeah, there's no
even on some of the checkdowns that he's leading. even on some of the checkdowns you're completing, there may be somebody down the field that's open that you're not throwing the ball to that you're supposed to be throwing the ball to. So I don't get too caught up in that. That's why I love what I'm seeing when you got Cam Justice here doing the tape, doing the video, and you get to see it. Now, it still doesn't provide you 100% clarity in terms of answers, reads, all those other things. You can't even see everybody on the field on the given play, but you can at least see in this, in terms of Shedeur Sanders here, of why you'd be excited about what Shedeur Sanders can be, or with some of these other plays, why you'd be excited about what Dylan Gabriel can be. And you want them to have these successes, and then to continue to build on them and hopefully earn opportunities to move up to depth, against the better defense or the ones or whatever, that we get to a point where we can start talking about, well, maybe this guy should start pushing Flacco. We're not there yet. I don't know if we're going to get there before the season starts, but that's sort of what I want to see from these guys.
I got to admit this, Pete, I was wrong about the physical nature of practice. So, I kind of pushed back on that idea. And Wyatt Teller even said, in the past, on the first day of padded practices, we've never done anything like this. We've always just done one-on-ones. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We didn't get into team like this. And you can even watch, just play this one more time. I mean, they're going pretty hard in the trenches. You know what I mean? I know they're just playing to the thud or whatever, but I mean, they're going hard at the line of scrimmage. There's a lot of contact here, more than I can recall in the past.
Well, I mean, they have to develop that mentality. They have to be a more physical football team. They have to be able to outlast opponents and be able to out-hit them to a certain extent. Hopefully they can get to that point. And then there's the element of being smart. And some of this is dictated by the CBA. Kevin Stefanski talked about how they can't go 3 days in a row with pads. So they go Monday in pads, Tuesday no pads. And I don't even know. I don't know if that's just shirts or if that's the spider things, shoulder things. But Wednesday they're going to be back in pads, and they've got to sort of develop that mentality. And obviously the concern is injuries and all these other things. Now, Martin Emerson's injury comes on a day where they're not in pads and was just a, sort of a fluke element as opposed to necessarily wearing on guys and beating them up. Now, they do have some guys that are out with injuries. We don't know, the specifics on even what they are. Like Tevin Jenkins is out.
Like this play specifically, like I just can't remember watching a run play in practice where you guys are. I mean, the defensive line has been excellent and dominated practice. They can't run the ball worth anything against them, which is kind of scary, but the defensive line is really good too. But
look, that's who they've got to be. And yes, that's the whole balancing act of, hey, it's great. Our defense looks great, but the offense stinks. And how much is that? The defense is so good that it's just overwhelming, and versus the offense might be just awful and making the defense look good. And the chances are we won't get much clarity on that until starting with the joint practice against the Carolina Panthers and then the joint practice against the Philadelphia Eagles. And obviously one of those is a little bit more of a measuring stick than the other. But if the Browns come out, in 5 more practices from today against Carolina, and the talk coming out of that is, oh man, the Browns are more physical. The Browns got after them consistently in terms of effort and pursuit and just the way they hit. That's going to be a good indication of where this team is going, in my view. Like that's one of the things I will look for when we get commentary from people who are there in terms of what we're seeing. And then hopefully that would then carry over to Philadelphia, where you're sitting there going, the defending Super Bowl champions, and they go, okay, the first day, which is the more impactful day. I think they've got 2 with the Eagles. They gave the Eagles offensive line all they can handle in terms of the physicality. That would be encouraging. That this is getting the result that the Browns want.
I got this just for you, Aiden Hutchinson.
Oh, listen,
looking super powerful right here. Look at this rep.
Boom. Well, this is a bad rep for the offensive line. This is not about Aiden Huntington's power. It's about his quickness. So what you've got here, if you're watching this, is the center is going to immediately block back, like pull to block back, and the poor left guard, who's already been cut, is trying to block down as Aiden Huntington is already getting up the field and past him. Look, there are guards that are going to be able to make this block, but this is why I'm excited about Aiden Huntington. It's the explosiveness that he's able to get in the backfield on what is play action pass and what should easily be a sack based on that play action pass. But this is all the stuff I really like about Aiden Huntington. He's just giving guys fits, and I'm very curious to see how this thing goes because all of the clips I keep seeing from him are on the interior. Are they going to get to a point? If I want to go, one of the things that I'm sort of keeping an eye on, are they going to get to a point where they say, okay, Shelby Harris, you're 34 years old. You probably want to go somewhere else and compete and all these other things. And we really like this Aiden Huntington guy and we want to play him on the inside and we move him with the defensive tackle group. They could still keep him on the edge and keep as the fifth edge as he's listed on the roster and keep Shelby Harris. However, there is one guy that I continue to be intrigued by on the edge. Who keeps flashing, and I noted this coming out last year. He's a guy I liked coming out of college at San Diego State. He was a third-round pick by Arizona, I believe. Cam Thomas. And Cam Thomas, very productive at San Diego State, just crushed that league. Really pretty good athlete. Didn't do much for Arizona. They caught him and waived him last year. The Browns made a waiver claim of Cam Thomas, along with the James Houston, the fourth or whatever rendition of James Houston he is from Detroit. And they get both of these guys. And then down the stretch, they put Cam Thomas out there almost exclusively, I think, at left end. And which is where he's been playing in camp too. And then he proceeded to have 8 stops, according to PFF's grading, plays that are deemed failure for the offense. I have 64 snaps. And we can talk about playing out the string and all these other things, but that's a really good percentage. And, very small sample size, 64 snaps, 8 stops, and that is great. But as I keep seeing him on the field with reasonably high up guys, like I mentioned earlier, there's a play where he's on the field with Myles Garrett. I still think it's an uphill climb for him. But I'm curious if we're going to get to a point that apparently Cam Thomas, the fit he needed was this Browns defense, and they like him for the fifth edge. Aiden Huntington sliding inside if he's going to be if they like him enough, and then Shelby Harris is sort of given the option to sort of go to a team that he can compete with this year, as opposed to sort of playing out the string at 34 years old. That's way down the road, but that's one of the things I'm sort of watching to see what happens. And if the preseason is handled the way I want to handle it, where it's mostly young guys and nobody starting is out there because that's a waste of their time, that hopefully Cam Thomas gets to go out there and just dominate and Aiden Huntington, and that these guys continue to give you reasons to go, these are perfect fits for what Jim Schwartz wants to do. They're young players, and you sort of keep fitting and improving your roster that way. Again, Cam Thomas is not some rando, Aiden Huntington, an undrafted rookie. It's not like it's all you're doing nothing. He is a former third-round pick. Highly enough of him to draft him that high, and maybe the Browns are the fit for him. I don't know. Like I said, too early at this point, but I'm continuing to be intrigued by what he can do off that left edge.
Yeah, if you recall, I wrote after I was at camp on Saturday that I noticed that he was getting reps opposite Alex Wright and opposite Isaiah McGuire at times. So, and kind of took note of that. And if you compare, I did put this in the article, but if you compare, what, Isaiah McGuire is as far as like an explosive athlete, and strong and powerful athlete, he is kind of different, as in he is more agile, right? Like their RAS scores are like polar opposites of each other, but they win in different ways, which is kind of a good thing to have, I think, at the position.
It can be, and just giving a different thing for a blocker to face could be problematic. Now, there's a world where Thomas is sort of giving these looks early, and if he doesn't do enough with them, maybe they move on to somebody else. Nevertheless, until he stops getting looks with that group, he's at least intriguing to see what he can do and see if he can find a spot. And maybe, even if he doesn't, maybe they can get him to the practice squad. But, the defensive line, which is already the most entertaining group on this team in many ways, it's good that they keep finding more guys that you're sort of like at least interested in.
The other thing I would note is that that has been kind of surprising is Chris Edmonds has been getting reps with like basically after Delpit, when Delpit's not in, like he's coming in and playing strong safety. And I guess I didn't expect that from him. I kind of expected, I don't know what I expected it to be Jenkins or Casey or even McMillan, right? But they seem to like Chris Edmonds a lot.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that's going for Chris Edmonds is he was here last year. He was an undrafted rookie that they signed after the 2024 season, along with some of the other, they assembled a bunch of these guys. And, he's been here for a year. So on that level, he's got a little bit more, even though Casey is a veteran, he's been around a while, and Rayshawn Jenkins has been around a while. Just maybe, perhaps, knowledge of the system is allowing Chris Edmonds to get an early look, and maybe he can, gain some momentum and do something with it. Now, it could be a situation whereas, again, sort of like I just mentioned with Cam Thomas, because he's got a little bit more familiarity with the system, they're going to get him reps early as the other guys sort of figure it out and get up to speed on the scheme. And then if he doesn't do enough, then they can sort of moving those guys. Now, having said that, Chris Edmonds, in terms of like what type of player he is, it's a lot of D'Anthony Bell. He was I think he's a bigger guy.
He is.
And he's more of a downhill player. That could potentially be an asset on special teams. But if they want to try to find
6'2",
that D'Anthony Bell type player, Chris Edmonds might be sort of that next guy up in terms of being able to find that answer there, because he was a guy, Arizona State, and you sort of went like, as a lot of people keep doing with their undrafted free agents, the Browns keep doing, because they're very sort of not the norm in terms of the guys that everybody thinks that they should be targeting. Nobody's sitting there clamoring for Chris Edmonds. You go sort of, why did they bring in this guy? Off the top of my head, I don't think he had a ton of on-ball production in terms of pass defenses and interceptions and all that stuff. I think he was just mostly a guy who made tackles. So we'll see how far that goes. But, they've had success with Ronnie Hickman, obviously, as an undrafted free agent. And again, I really like what the Browns have in Ephraim Banda as the safeties coach. So, again, I'm inclined to sort of let him see where this thing go, and maybe they can find something in Chris Edmonds. That would be great, especially as, one of the things people are not convinced of is the Browns have enough safety help. I'm not as worried about it as other people are, but hey, if Chris Edmonds can give you something else and good enough to potentially maybe beat out a Rayshawn Jenkins and earn the roster more good stuff, because he's another younger player on the roster.
I would say, Jenkins is fun to watch. He kind of flies around. He's around the ball a lot, knocking the ball loose. Casey's a veteran, like you mentioned. But like the thing that I noticed, not even about Edmonds, that was kind of just something that was reported about him getting reps there. But like when I was there on Saturday, the thing that I noticed about the safety room was that McMillan looks like an NFL safety to me. He has the size, he has the big shoulders. He just looks like the athlete. You know what I mean? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say Chris Edmonds just checking 6'2", almost 6'2 and a half, 210 with 4.49 speed, not particularly agile or explosive, but those numbers jump off. You got tiny little hands though. But nevertheless, as a potentially an overhang force player, which is what the Anthony Bell was, that sort of fits in that element. And that's the thought, Donovan McMillan. I'm very curious to see where he goes. I understand. Again, I see the appeal. I'm just curious if they can find a role, because in a lot of ways, I never found him to be a particular standout in any one spot, but like he has some of the same similar qualities that Ronnie Hickman had in terms of he's just always finds himself around the football, making tackles and just sort of doing his job. And that may be sort of their type in this regard. I don't know if McMillan is a bit more suited to free or strong for the Browns. He's been sort of a combo safety for Pitt. But yeah, I mean, these are guys where you sit there and you look around, you go, okay, if he looks like an NFL player, that's for an undrafted rookie, that's already passing a test. Is that enough to sort of earn a roster spot? Probably not. But if he can then carry that over and look pretty good, I mean, this is another undrafted rookie safety that the Browns are able to sort of make work.
Just some kind of intriguing stuff there to keep an eye on. All right, let's do. Haslam spoke today. I have a video that I want to play. It's sort of about the Haslams. It's Colin Cowherd. We got requested to play it on the show. But any thoughts on what the Haslams had to say today? Anything that stood out to you other than what we've already kind of mentioned?
Yeah, when he was asked about Deshaun Watson, he literally pointed back to the answer he had at the owners' meetings, which all he said at that point was Deshaun Watson, a big swing and miss. Like, it's pretty clear he's not coming back. The owner and the coach and the GM are not going to say this, but Haslam has now said it twice. He's not coming back. Like,
stop asking,
and we're going to keep asking about it. But I don't know how much more we can say that he's not coming back when the owner's telling you straight up he's not coming back.
Agreed. Music to my ears. I thought he handled the questions about Shedeur well.
Well, I mean, like that whole idea that he forced the pick never made sense on his face.
In
like
the 5th round,
Well, I mean, the 5th round for one thing, trading up to do it is another thing, and then why would you force a quarterback pick after the team already made a quarterback pick? Like, theoretically, if they're going to force one, and the team said, we really want Dylan Gabriel, if he wanted to force it, he would say, no, you're taking Shedeur Sanders. That made no sense. So, like, to then step in now in the 5th round and say, I want the 4th quarterback on this team to be Shedeur Sanders, and I'm not taking no for an answer. Like, that makes no sense. And so much of this was based on, a video where the Browns didn't look enthusiastic, based on how when the pick was announced on TV, when they looked the exact same for all the other picks.
Every other pick.
That part of it was just dumb. So, like, I just never bought into this idea that Jimmy Haslam was sitting there in the 5th round going, okay, now it's Jimmy's time to freaking make a pick.
Jimmy's time.
Why wait? And I think, and I'll be honest, I suspect Jimmy Haslam was more excited about the pick that preceded Shedeur Sanders than Shedeur Sanders, which is Dylan Sampson, because Dylan Sampson played at Tennessee and was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year at his alma mater. And I don't assume he made that pick either. That was just a really, really smart pick. But, the other problem with this is, like, if you are of the belief that Jimmy Haslam forced this pick and you're simultaneously saying this was a great value and a great pick, then you're saying Jimmy Haslam was, like, really smart to do this, which is also backwards. Like, none of that made sense. The other thing that sort of jumped out to me with Haslam's comments was when he was asked sort of about expectations, and he avoided putting a win total on it. Which, one, I think is smart, even though I think 3-14, they're in real trouble. But I think so much of what they want to see from this team isn't about wins and losses, because the schedule is going to be tough. It's about what this team feels like throughout the season. They've got, I think, 6 teams. Their first 6 games are against teams that won at least 10 last year. Do they feel like they're fighting in those games, or are they just laying down and dying? And are we playing out the string in meaningless football games where the team looks lifeless and not fighting at the end of the season? Or are we starting to see why the team is sort of assembled the way it is? Are we starting to see, hopefully, a healthy team in terms of overall injuries start to impose its will defensively? Which I assume hopefully will happen most of the year. But are they starting to put some things together? Are we starting to see, whether it's Dylan Sampson or Harold Fanner, some of these younger players step up and look the part, and to a point where maybe we're sitting there going, hey, if they can get, obviously one of these rookie quarterbacks stepping in and being great would be the best case scenario. But if that doesn't happen, where you're sitting there going, okay, the Browns weren't great this year, but I can see where if they can get a quarterback and with 2 first-round picks, I can see where this team becomes good real fast. I think those are more interesting conversations for Jimmy Haslam as far as evaluating the regime than saying, well, we need to get to this win total, because I just don't think that is helpful for what this team's trying to achieve this year. Even though certainly I would like to see them compete and avoid another double-digit loss season and start to see, I would love to see another plucky Kevin Stefanski team that sort of overachieves and take some pelts of playoff teams and all those things.
Yeah, that's the hope, right? All right. So this was requested of us to react to by our one of our fans, and it's a good, interesting, kind of fun video along the lines of the Haslams. Here we go.
It is not. In fact, this is the worst kept secret in the South. Haslam, Jimmy, owner of the Browns, huge SEC Tennessee booster, leans heavily on the Manning family. Very close to the Manning family. Yes, that's not make-believe. Arch Manning is part of the Manning family, and this is where Nick Saban comes in. Saban is incredibly close to not only Jimmy Haslam, but Saban's close to the Manning family as well. And so Saban, if he could land, I'm told, a top quarterback like Harbaugh going to the Chargers for Herbert, he would take a phone call for the NFL. And there are 2 teams guaranteed to be awful this year in the NFL: Cleveland and the Saints. Nick Saban has coached in Cleveland with the Browns under the Belichick staff, and he coached at LSU. This is not a conspiracy theory. Haslam's circle of trust, according to an article in The Athletic last year, is the Manning family and Jimmy Sexton and Bill Parcells. Sexton is Nick Saban's agent.
He's everybody's agent.
Jimmy Sexton.
He's literally everybody's agent in coaching.
The guy's freaking boogeyman, man.
This is idiotic on its face. Nick Saban's 73 years old.
I know.
He's the most accomplished college coach in history. He got out of that because he was tired of dealing with the NIL and all that stuff, and just how sort of overcomplicated that element became, where he felt like he couldn't coach and do all these other things. Why would he jump back in the NFL after he already did the thing with the Dolphins? Why would he jump back in the NFL for the Browns, who, I guess there's some weird world where they could get a quarterback and suddenly be great. Nick Saban doesn't have time for that. I don't sense Pete Carroll energy in this man. I think he's more than happy doing what he's doing. And he's come out and said this himself, that he's not interested in doing this. He goes to the Browns. He goes to the Browns in 1994. 1994. That part of it is stupid. And then, it's not, it's not even remotely a secret that Jimmy Haslam has a relationship with Peyton Manning and the Manning family, because Peyton Manning is, a storied quarterback at Jimmy Haslam's alma mater in Tennessee, and has a relationship with him. You know what the Mannings are not going to do? They're not going to force Arch Manning to declare to go play for the Browns,
which is actually what Jimmy said today.
He did say that, and said 2 years most likely, because that's what the Mannings do. So all of this is a stupid reach. And the reason he's saying this is because this is a couple days old, right? It is dead period. I mean, NFL camps are great for a lot of things. They are not great for what Colin Cowherd does. So he is filling airtime with manufactured, reach stories to try to get buzz and make a story. Because here's the thing. If nothing ever materializes on this, and it won't, no one's ever going to come back for Colin Cowherd and go, you came up with an asinine idea that Nick Saban was going to coach the Browns. And Colin Cowherd does this all the time in terms of introducing outrageous ideas that never come to fruition and just moving on to the next one so fast that no one checks him on any of it. It's crap.
Yeah.
But this is the business he's in. Unless it involves USC, he doesn't know much. So I don't put any stock into this. I don't put any stock in the idea that Jimmy Haslam, who is 80-some, is desperate to hire Nick Saban at 73 to try to revitalize his football team for what, 2 years? If at best, like it's as short term as the Bill Belichick UNC thing's going to be, which might be one season. Just stupid on all of this.
Really?
None of this is
one
realistic.
Season for Bill?
Yeah, I think he's dead. I think he'll be out after this year.
How many games do you think they win?
I don't know. They'll make a bowl game, and then, do whatever.
So why did he do it then for 1 year?
It's not him that wants the 1 year. I think the school is basically going to say we're not doing this again after all the mess that they've been dealing with.
Oh, really?
Now, whether that's going to allow them to transit, the whole goal of this, I should say, one of the goals for this whole thing was that Bill Belichick was eventually going to step down and Steve Belichick was going to be the head coach.
Right.
Will this change that? Maybe. But the whole, distraction with the Jordan, what's her face, and all this other stuff has been an absolute nightmare for UNC, even though they're trying to put on a tough face and pretend it hasn't been. It's been embarrassing. They're paying him an obscene amount of money to go through this, and they're not going to be, they're not a threat to win the ACC this year. Clemson is going to boat race the entire conference. So maybe there's a world where UNC finishes second and they're super happy about it, but I don't think so. They are paying a lot of money for this to be embarrassed, and if they aren't good, it's going to get real ugly real fast.
All right. That's interesting. Okay. Let's well, we don't even need to proceed to this. I have one more video we'll get to here in a minute on the quarterback stuff from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. But I did want to ask you about this. John Greco was on with 92.3 this morning. And if you pay attention to sports, and obviously here in Cleveland, you are aware of what's happening with the Guardians pitchers, Luis Ortiz, and then today their closer with the gambling stuff. Do you ever think that this will, like, this has happened in basketball now with Malik Beasley and, some other instances, right? And it's now happened in baseball. Is football, like, are they like immune to this sort of thing because it's so much more difficult to, change the outcome of a game gambling wise, or prop wise or whatever? Or do you think this is something the NFL needs to watch closely as well? Because Stefanski was like, we talk about it all the time in his presser today. We're constantly talking about it.
The NFL is not immune, but it's really difficult. The NFL is not immune in part because careers are very short, and you could theoretically make a very lucrative move, before your career is over. Essentially, like if you're, you're a player that doesn't think he's going to have a long career, but somehow you end up on the field and you can manipulate it. But the problem is, it's really difficult to do that in a way that's not going to be apparent. The positions that would be the most susceptible would be kicker and punter, and quarterback, I guess. But like, I just don't see it working out like that, which again, they're not immune. So, if there's a way to do it, they'll figure it out. But like, it's not the same as in prop bets with baseball and pitches where you can easily sort of manipulate the outcome without losing the game.
There's a first pitch prop. It's a throwaway pitch. You know what I mean?
Now, some of that, is just stupid that baseball has that sort of prop bet because it's very easy to do. It's much harder with football to do some of these things, and the opportunities are not as difficult or not as easy to sort of manifest, to do these type of things. So unless you're the quarterback, and you're doing it, there's only so much control anyone has to do any of this stuff. So not immune, because we saw a couple of years ago when the whole, when the NFL sort of allowed gambling into the league, they suspended guys for the entire year. Multiple Detroit Lions players were out for a year due to gambling.
But that was just gambling in general, right?
Yes, that was gambling gambling in the facility.
In the facility.
You can gamble like at home or whatever on sports that are unrelated to football, but these guys got caught gambling in the facility, and then you're still banned from, I think, betting on football if you're a football player and all that stuff. But it has happened. Which wide receiver got booted for a year or multiple years for gambling? The NFL in some ways.
Jameson Williams.
Who?
Wasn't Jameson Williams? Didn't he?
No, it was like a Falcons receiver was booted for gambling for a couple of years. Anyway,
Ridley.
Yes, Calvin Ridley. So I think partly because the NFL has already punished people for this type of stuff, that message has been sent. But no, I'm not foolish enough to assume that this thing is completely, immune from manipulation from the players. Unfortunately, the place that could be manipulated most effectively is with officials. And obviously we've already seen this with the NBA, with Tim Donaghy, but that is the sweet spot for NFL games to be manipulated. Is penalties over the course of a game can make a significant difference, or one big call can make a significant difference. But, I'm never going to be foolish enough to say, oh, the NFL, this is impossible. But it's certainly more difficult than the other sports.
Yeah. It's just,
hockey would also be very difficult.
Yeah. It's like the scenarios that you can't, it would be so hard to predict, like what players you need to predict, to affect an outcome, and will you even be on the field when the game is decided? You know what I mean? Ultimately, or to affect a prop bet or anything else. But, this allegedly organized crime is involved in this somehow and whatnot. It's just, I was interested at that Greco responded very similarly, that it would be very difficult to impact a football game in the same way as the other sports, in his opinion. And I think that's right, but not impossible. It would just it would take some far reaching and some deep pockets to make it, an impact, I think.
Right. And most we see with this is in the positive direction, which is teams sort of working together to help teammates achieve player incentives. Like, famously Jameis Winston went out of his way, called a play to help his teammate hit an incentive. It's just so hard to do this other stuff. And here again, like the thing that would make sense. So let's use the Malik Beasley example. He was like racing down the court in garbage time to score points. Like,
very obvious afterwards.
Well, that too, but the coach is going to know, like, why is my quarterback randomly running a hurry up offense when I don't want him to run a hurry up offense or something like that? It's like
when we're supposed to be killing the
or
clock.
calls his own plays or something when he's not supposed to. Like that's the other part is like this would have been more possible in say like the 80s or the early 90s where more quarterbacks were calling their own plays.
Sure.
So much control has been wrested into coaches every single play that's the other part which works as sort of a natural safeguard.
When I was looking at the Browns schedule the other day and the way they start, and this made me think of that, do you think that the Detroit Lions will suffer from a coaching drain this season without Ben Johnson and whatnot? Because like I am on the record as not being a huge fan of their head coach, and that a lot of their success is due to their previous offensive coordinator who is now gone, and their defensive coordinator is gone. Do you think that, the Browns get them week 4 or something like that? Mm-hmm. Is it possible that they see a fall off on the offensive side of the ball without him there?
They can see a fall off on both sides of the ball because they lost both coordinators.
Right.
But it might be difficult to tell because the Detroit Lions are also bringing a whole lot of guys back from injury over the course of the season. Like if Aleem McNeil's just out for the year already, like he's not going to make it back. They had the 2023 Browns season that extended into the deeper into the playoffs where, they get as far as they're going to go. And then all of a sudden they lose their starting corner basically as soon as the game starts. They were hemorrhaging players. I think there could be certainly a brain drain that is palpable, and maybe we're able to sort of delve back into it. But I think the early part of the year, I think Detroit's going to have a difficult time I think they'll be fine. But I think part of it is they are sort of forced to practice in some ways, and maybe Dan Campbell has effectively found ways around this, sort of like the Browns were, where they are just missing a lot of players that they are counting, that they need, and that might impact their ability to practice the way they want. Maybe they come out with a sluggish start, and then, by the second half of the season, when they sort of get back to full strength, as long as they don't lose more guys, that maybe they're able to sort of right the ship and get back to being the Detroit Lions as you'd expect them to be. But yeah, look, I mean, Ben Johnson was great for them. I mean, not perfect. There are some things that he did were just downright strange. But you lose both coordinators in the offseason. That's not, and they lost more than that. I mean, they lost I think they lost multiple assistants on both sides, either going with the coach that was just hired as a head coach elsewhere, or getting promoted out to other places. So, it's a lot of new faces with there. Dan Campbell has a chance to prove himself to be a fantastic head coach if he can get Detroit to be a really good team again, given all the sort of potential hurdles in the way.
If you're just arriving, we did cover the Emerson injury in the first hour of the show, or first half hour of the show. So when we're done, fire back over there and check that out. And you can get Pete's comments on that and kind of our thoughts on how to handle the secondary moving forward if it is a worst case scenario. If you're enjoying what you're watching here on the OBR streaming network, make sure you hit like and subscribe. I don't know why the algorithm likes it when you hit like. So hit like, make sure it works. Make sure you hit that button, help us out. And then go over to the OBR.com, the website. Subscribe for VIP premium service. VIP subscribers get exclusive access to all of our VIP premium forums, including Insider Central for premium scoops from Lane Adkins, worth the price of admission. Pete's terrific writing, cap breakdowns from Jack Duffin, all of our other terrific writers, and Fred Greetham's beat report every day, the Barry McBride's morning news wire. All of those things are available over at the website. And this includes all of the VIP stories. Plus, you'll have access to the transfer portal and all of the 247 Sports Network, and even bonus cherry on top time, access to Paramount Plus, which will give you NFL games in the end once the season starts, plus great shows like Landman and Mayor of Kingstown and others, which are really good, and Showtime thrown in free as well. Kind of pays for the sub itself. So go over to the obr.com or into the description below, where the link is there to become a subscriber today. It is an incredible deal, and we appreciate your support. All right. Final video of the show. Yes, thank you, MC. If you haven't hit that like button yet, swing on down yonder, give it a poke. Make sure it's working. Sometimes it does something different. I don't know. Just hit the button. It helps us out a ton. All right. Here is the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show's thoughts on the Kenny Pickett injury and the quarterback position moving forward.
This starting conversation.
Unless you want an injured quarterback.
Over the weekend, we got news that Kenny Pickett suffered some sort of hamstring injury during Saturday's practice. He did finish the practice, but then it was announced on Sunday that he will miss some period of time. We don't exactly have an exact amount of time. Mary Kay Cabot tweeted this morning that the Browns will not sign another quarterback in wake of the hamstring injury. So that means this week, at least the next couple of days, and for the foreseeable future, the Browns' quarterback rotation will look like some combination of Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, and Dillon Gabriel. Earl, I'll start with you on this. With Pickett out of the mix for the next week, let's just call it a week to be safe. Maybe it's a little longer, maybe it's a little less. How does that open the door for some extra opportunities now for the young two quarterbacks, Sanders and
we have no idea on the timeline on this thing, right?
They said they're going to reevaluate at the end of this week, which, feeds into my theory that may not be real, but, hamstrings are funky and tricky and all these other things. So, like, if you're going to, pick an injury, that's, hamstring's a good one. Groin's another good one.
Yeah, just curious. Let's just throw the crazy, let's put on our tinfoil hats for a second and say that we're saying that this is not a real injury. How would you get Kenny Pickett to buy into that?
Because it beats the hell out of him sitting there watching and not doing anything.
Okay.
Sanders and Gabriel, who are still in the thick of this quarterback competition.
Man, when preparation meets opportunity, you must seize the moment. I cannot stress that enough, man. Like, when opportunity and preparation meet, you must seize the moment. Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, to me, fellas, got a prime opportunity now to make the Cleveland Browns forget about Kenny Pickett altogether. It's been a lot has been said and written about, he could be Sam Darnold of this year for the Cleveland Browns and things like that. Well, you got two rookie quarterbacks.
So you're writing them off already?
What I'm saying is this is our opportunity for the rookies to make the Cleveland Browns forget about considering Kenny Pickett. If Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders go out there and ball their asses off or practice hard as hell and show that they can command the huddle, so that they can get out the huddle and command the line of scrimmage and make all the proper reads, all the proper throws, and make some noise and some big plays, that'd be enough to turn some heads to make Kevin Stefanski or Andrew Berry think twice about this pecking order, like when it comes to the quarterbacks. These young quarterbacks, they hear all the noise about, the 2026 draft and Arch Manning and players like that. Well, they're here right now. And they want an opportunity to prove right now that they can be that guy for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
And so for both of them, this is a prime opportunity to get out there and just seize the moment, show what you can do, and hopefully jump Kenny Pickett. Do enough while he's out for the next week or so to be able to jump Kenny Pickett so that the Browns won't have to consider him as a starting quarterback. You move up and you get the opportunities. You're talking about a soft tissue injury here, right? So it's not going to be something that he's just going to bounce back from like that, turn around, he's back up under center, and everything is all systems go. I think that this injury is very important, and it opens up so many different opportunities on so many different levels. We got a preseason game coming up, right? And so when you talk about the limited reps that Joe Flacco has already received so far during camp, it makes me to believe, okay, well, then you're going to have one rookie starting, another rookie coming right up after him when it's all said and done when it comes to that preseason game against the Panthers.
Perfect.
And so,
Well, I think it would have been that way anyhow, don't you? But
well,
they're the only ones that
I don't, because
they're just question marks.
If Kenny Pickett was healthy, then maybe Kenny gets the start. But with the hamstring injury, I don't even really see him playing in that first preseason game. I just look at this moment for Shedeur and for Dylan Gabriel. This is an opportunity to seize the moment and make the Cleveland Browns forget about having Kenny Pickett in their long-term
What do you think,
plans.
G?
Well, listen, as I was doing my blogs this week, the one thing I said, I went out there on Wednesday, or excuse me, it was on Thursday, and I said, right now it's not a competition. It looks like the Cleveland Browns are auditioning to see which one is going to play, Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco. I said, but that's for right now. You see, because the great thing about the game of football is we all know all too well, given, even from my personal experience, injuries are a massive part of the game. It just is what it is. And you never really want to take an opportunity, and you never really want to, do victory laps when somebody else gets injured. Because after all, they're all part of the Cleveland Browns. And I thought, to be honest with you, I thought Kenny Pickett had a really nice day on Saturday. I thought he scored a couple of touchdowns on the goal line. And the one thing that I mentioned was the simple fact that, man, Kenny Pickett seems to be using his legs a lot. Right? They were moving the pocket. They were doing some read option stuff. He was finding guys in the end zone. There's a touchdown right there. And I said, man, I thought that he really, really did well, especially on the goal line period. And I think he had a really good day. But I also thought Shedeur Sanders had the best day that day. He had 3 touchdowns, the one touchdown he threw. And I'll say this. Now you have 3 quarterbacks. Now you have an opportunity. If you're Dylan Gabriel, you're Shedeur Sanders. Now Shedeur will probably get reps. Dylan Gabriel will probably get more reps. And then you have Joe Flacco. The reason this is big is because of this. If you have Kenny Pickett with a hamstring, how many throws and how much harm do you want to put Joe Flacco in? Because at
In the preseason? None.
There you go.
You don't need to.
Even in practice, G, he's only gone through 2 of the 4 competitive practices. He basically
You don't need to see what Joe Flacco is. We know what Joe Flacco is.
We get it. We understand what he's going to be. Now, when Kevin Stefanski last week said there's that opportunity to reshape things, well, that was taken away from him. He got to pivot and repivot, and all we needed to know was this, McNuggets. What did you say when we came on? The Cleveland Browns are not bringing in another quarterback.
No.
So that means these young boys, Pearl, is going to get an opportunity to see what you got. And guess what? When you see what you got to perform. And now, to me, this is the most interesting week in the entire training camp. Because now now it's a real opportunity to see, we're going to go head to head now. Now it's Dylan Gabriel and it's Shedeur Sanders. The 2 young guys are going to get those reps open.
All right. The reason I chose this video is coming up. I'm sorry for putting you through all this.
Are you sure? Because they've got to start. What I want Mikey McNuggets to do, my unsolicited idea, is start putting a stopwatch on the absolute nothing you're getting for what I'm guessing, what feels like an eternity. Because he's literally just restating Earl the Pearl's point in the slowest possible way ever. So I hope I hope he gets somewhere useful eventually.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on what's his name?
Who?
My guy from Channel 5 over there.
Your guy.
what the only other guy on stage besides Earl and G. Bush?
Jay Crawford?
Jay Crawford.
Who's it? He doesn't work at Channel 5. He works at Channel 3.
Whatever. I don't keep track of Crawford's comings and goings. Channel 3.
And we're going to get to see if they understand the playbook. We're going to get to see the throws. We're going to see a lot of it because Kenny Pickett is out, and Joe Flacco, I don't think, is going to be taking those reps. So I think it's very significant.
You guys are looking at this entirely differently than I am, and maybe you're right, and I'm completely wrong.
All right, bring it home, Jay. Let's go.
I'm not looking at this as a 4 to 6 week injury. I've had hamstrings. You've had hamstrings. Hamstrings, particularly early in the season, those tend to be more common and less severe. And I don't know. I don't have the intel.
I expect maybe a week.
That's all I expect.
Maybe a week.
Maybe
a couple
2
days.
weeks. But here's the thing.
Real quick, Jay. Just
to clarify, go ahead.
Schefter said he will be reevaluated later this week.
Right, I did see that.
So there's no. It could be literally 4 days. It could be 3 weeks. We have no idea. All we know is he'll be reevaluated.
If you're the Browns, this might be the best thing that's happened, and here's why. Are we in agreement that Kenny Pickett has surprised all of us at camp, and then he seemed to be the clear front runner for the job?
No.
Am I echoing what you guys are saying?
I went out there
because the dailies that I've talked to, that's what I'm hearing.
I went out there and I seen him too, and I'm not gonna hate on Kenny.
Hold on. The dailies that he's talked to, that's what he's hearing. That Kenny Pickett has surprised everyone and is the front runner. Hang on.
When I seen him, he had a solid practice. G said he had a solid practice. So Kenny has stepped into training camp and he's done okay for himself.
So here's the beauty of it. Like I'm always, where's the silver lining? How is this good? And in football, it's next man up. Mm-hmm. That's it. You never wish for injuries. My God, of course not.
No.
However, this might be one of the most well-timed, well-placed injuries that they're going to have this year. And here's why. They've established the fact that, and it's small sample size. I want to go on record as saying that. By no means have they said, everybody was off on their pre-evaluation of Kenny Pickett. I'm not ready to go that far, but I do think there is internally, inside the Browns organization, they are subscribing to the theory that Kenny Pickett was a product of their offensive coordinator, who many people said Canada was the worst offensive coordinator that we've seen in recent memory. I said, well, they must not watch Browns football. But Canada was getting dinged, especially friendly fire. Mm-hmm. Even guys within the Steelers were privately saying, this guy's killing us. This guy, we're not going to make the playoffs with this guy, whatever. So there is a prevailing thought in the Browns organization, which is why they went out and got him, that there's more to Kenny Pickett than Pittsburgh was ever able to pull out. And Kevin Stefanski, as we've seen in the past, has gotten a lot with very little to work with. He took a team with 5 different quarterbacks, including a guy off the couch, to the playoffs. That earned him Coach of the Year award. So I think the Browns brass is thinking, A, there's more to Kenny than we think. B, we think the league might have moved on from him prematurely. C, let's get him with our guy. And let's see if we can make a love connection here, if we can make something happen. And in the very small sample size we've seen, I think he's overachieved. He's exceeded what I thought he was already. He's just looked different. You mentioned the fact that his legs are a huge asset for him. Mm-hmm. We need that. In today's NFL, if you have a quarterback that can work with his legs, you've got an extra piece of arsenal in your toolbox. We haven't had that. We have not had that. Even when we got Deshaun Watson, we thought we would have that. We didn't have that. He just hasn't been healthy. So I honestly think that in the Browns' mind, they're like, yeah, we were right. We were right with this guy. This guy can carry the load. He can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, what?
Do you believe that? Do you think that's what internally the Browns are thinking?
I think Jay Crawford's assertions are accurate in the past. They were genuinely excited about Kenny Pickett. They genuinely believed that Pittsburgh did not get enough out of him and hurt him in a lot of ways and hurt his confidence, all these other things. They do like his legs. He's, him and Dylan Gabriel are the only quarterbacks who are really mobile. Joe Flacco can move, but he's 40. Shedeur Sanders is not mobile. So there's a reason they brought him in. There's a reason they acquired him. There was a reason they thought they could get more out of him than the Steelers did. And I don't doubt that they still believe that. So I haven't really thought of it from this angle. My contention and sort of why I believe that the injury was pretty convenient was I think Kenny Pickett has done well. I think Kenny Pickett has done a lot of the things Jay Crawford has asserted. I just don't think the difference between Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, but really Kenny Pickett and the rookies is sizable enough where I sit there and wonder if the Browns are sort of like, if the rookies can sort of take advantage of this time, that they sort of sit there and go, well, he's in year 4 and these guys are in year 1, and we feel like they're going to, fly right by him, that he sort of becomes irrelevant. Having said all of that, unless a team is willing to trade for Kenny Pickett, which they have to be serious about, because with suspensions likely coming to Quinshon Judkins and likely coming to Devin Bush, I don't think the Browns will have any difficulty making the case and establishing the roster where Kenny Pickett is one of the best 53 players they have to open the season. So if you want him, you are going to have to actually give the Browns something, whether that's, the Tennessee Titans losing Will Levis and wanting to replace him, Jack Duffin's theory. Jack Duffin's overwhelming confidence that he's a future New Orleans Saint. They're going to have to give them something. That could be a conditional pick. That could be a player. They'll have to give him something. Otherwise, the Browns can sit there and keep him and see if he's not going to get better. But, yeah, my read has been that, yes, they think Kenny Pickett is better than what he was in Pittsburgh. But based on what they've seen to this point, he's not the rocket ship that maybe they were hoping for would happen early and then saying we have to roll with him, as opposed to it's more likely he hasn't really created enough separation from the rookies. I cannot get on board with the idea that Dylan Gabriel or that he has already shown enough where they're sitting there going, yep, he's the starter. That part is very.
He hasn't even taken a rep with pads on yet.
Right. And that's sort of where I said, thought the injury was kind of convenient, is that the pads were literally coming on the next day when he was announcing this injury. But, to Jay Crawford's point, he's agreeing with me. I don't think healthy Kenny Pickett has any business seeing preseason snaps either. Joe Flacco, I think, is fireable in preseason. But, Kenny Pickett had a 158.3 QB rating with the Steelers in preseason. It meant absolutely nothing. So I need to see nothing from Kenny Pickett in preseason. I only want to see Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel get those reps, all 3 games. I don't care. It's a waste of time to put anyone else in there for 9 plays or whatever the hell else it's going to be. It's not worth the squeeze anything else. So I will agree with Jay on that. But he's, we'll see who's right. I'm completely on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of I think it's more likely that Kenny Pickett is sort of expendable as opposed to has assured himself the starting job.
Which is I can 100. You couldn't have said it any better. I think that they looked at the rookies and they looked at him as they're, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that this injury is on purpose, but the timing is convenient. But they looked at the rookie's progress and they looked at him and they said, at some point, Pete, this format has to become a normal format so they can get ready for the season. It can't be let's get all the reps to all the guys all off season, right? Like it has to become a preparation for week 1 at some point. But, I think that what they're seeing from their 2 rookies is enough to be like, and what they're seeing from Kenny Pickett is very similar. Like it's very similar. And they're like, well, these guys absolutely have much more upside for us as a football team than Kenny Pickett does at this point. He is who we thought he was. And
right. So So if the rookies don't take off this next week, Kenny Pickett may get real healthy again, and they may run him back out there and see if he can charge. I don't know the answer to that, but I will say this. Again, I think Joe Flacco is the favorite to win the job coming into the season. I know for a fact, based on what Lane Adkins has done in terms of reporting, the Browns did not come into camp with a preconceived notion of how this thing was going to go. They were more than happy to come in and say, show me something, win the job from all four guys, as opposed to, well, it's going to be this, and then we'll see where we're going to go here. No, they had no preconceived notion. They went in, they may have had sort of a hint of where this thing might end up, but they did not go in saying, oh, we want this to happen. Because the answer for we want this to happen is inevitably either Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel is crushing it and is going to be the franchise quarterback they need. I mean, that's obviously the best case scenario.
Yeah. I just think I agree, but I think reality kind of hits once you get into camp and you realize that you have 4 quarterbacks splitting reps and 2 of them are rookies and one of them is, a retread. And then you have Joe Flacco, and he is when you're running your stuff, clearly looks like the best quarterback there. And then you have it's okay, now can these rookies or Pickett, is there enough time for them to get to where Flacco is at and pass them? No, there's not enough time. Once you're back from minicamp and, and into this week, and now your pads are on, it's happening fast. If one of the rookies was going to win the job, Pete, I think it would take all of the offseason leading up. It would have to be a process through. Yeah. And I just don't think that, if you want to treat week one and do these veteran players like Joel Bitonio and Myles Garrett the justice of trying to be ready for week one, I don't think you can have a guy trying to win the job all the way up into week one.
Yeah, I mean, this was something that was going to happen at some point. Now, here again, if you go with the idea that this injury is not real and that Kenny Pickett's hamstring might be a little sore, but not enough to keep him out, then the Browns have designed a situation where they're down to 3 quarterbacks repping. If he's actually hurt and he did actually pull his hamstring or whatever, despite the fact that everybody saw him look fine throughout the entire practice in front of many people, then it just sort of worked out that way. So either way, it sort of naturally allows them to get more looks. And Joe Flacco still doesn't need a ton of reps, but at some point you're going to want to turn that up because you are now serious about trying to win football games and prepare for the season. Now, when are we going to hit that point? Unclear. I think that might get through maybe the first preseason game, and maybe that the Eagles is where they really start setting things in motion that's going to look like for the season. We shall see.
Got a lot of questions to answer at positions like wide receiver and stuff like that. Still a long way to go there for sure. Pete, great job as always. I'm going to camp tomorrow. Anything you want me to watch for specifically? Get my eyeballs on?
I don't. I mean, my guys, tell me I'm right. No, I honestly I don't care. I'm interested to see a reaction, sort of, because you're going to be at a padded practice. Does it feel like a team that's physical? Does it feel productive? Does it feel like it's trying? The overarching point, does it feel like a team that's trending towards the goals it set out for in training camp?
All right, we'll do it. It's early tomorrow morning. Thank you guys for watching the always excellent Pete Smith. Great job, Pete. What do you think of that new running back real quickly in less than 30 seconds? He's kind of a pinball, right? He's fun.
I know very little about him other than he played in the UFL, and he's what you described. Beyond that, I got nothing.
Yeah. Tawa. Certainly bounces off people. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Rough day for the Browns out of camp. Prayers for Martin Emerson. It hurts deep in my soul, that one does. But you guys have a great night. Thank you for watching the React. Keep it locked at the OBR for everything that you need. Browns, make sure you subscribe, become a VIP member. Stay tuned for Garage Beers next. For Pete Smith, my name is Brad Ward. Have a wonderful evening.